Hi, it's Amy Clarkson with the Clarkson Premier Team at Magnolia Realty, and today I'm going to talk with you about the time frame and the process of purchasing a new home. So when you first decide that you would like to purchase a home, we like to meet with you and discuss what your needs are, what you're looking for, and what your desires would be for that perfect home. And we come up with your 5 must-haves. Then we also make sure that you are set up with a lender to find out what your buying power is, so we know what that is when we start looking for homes. Then the next part is we find that perfect home for you by going out and looking at things that meet your criteria of your 5 must-haves. Once we find that great home, we execute a contract for you and we start the process. That's really when the time frame begins. Usually, typically from the execution of your contract to close, you're looking at about 30 to 45 days. Sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's longer, but on average, you're looking at 30 to 45 days before you get to move in. So when we execute that contract, your first piece in this process is the option period. That is something that's negotiated. It can be anywhere between 5 and 10 days, and that's when you do all your inspections, make sure everything checks out right, and we may negotiate repairs with the seller. In that option period, in that time frame, you can decide to get out of the contract for any reason. That's what you're paying for, is the time to make sure, do your due diligence that you still want to purchase that home. After the option period, you kind of go into what's called the financing period of the contract, and in that time period, you are going through and making sure the lender gets all the documentation they need from you, and they will tell you what that is through that process, and then they will also do the appraisal on the home to make sure that it appraises for the sales price. And you will also be shopping for insurance to make sure you find the best insurance deal for you. And then when it gets closer, after all of that happens, then you'll start thinking about setting up utilities for when you actually purchase the home and move in. That financing period usually is about anywhere from 10 to 15 days, depending on that process. It just depends on what documents the lender requires for you, how long it takes to get the appraisal back, and those kind of things. We keep you updated throughout that process and let you know what's happening and what the next step will be. And then, of course, it becomes the close date. Once we close, depending on how we negotiated it, you get to move in after funding, or if there was a seller leaseback, you might move in a couple days after it. That's something that we discussed during the beginning of the contract phase. We'll help you through each process. That's one of our goals at Clarkson Premier Team, is to make sure every step of the way you know what's going to happen next and you're prepared. Thanks.